Non-repudiation is a term that is often tossed around in cybersecurity and information security, especially on certifications like the CISSP. But what exactly is non-repudiation? While the term may evoke mental images of lawyers sitting around arguing about contracts and who signed them and who didn't and what the implications are, it's not actually that complicated. When we refer to non-repudiation, we're simply talking about a state in which an individual cannot deny having done an action that they have done, whether that's visiting a website, sending an email, editing a file, whatever the case might be. That's what we are talking about when we refer to non-repudiation. And while non-repudiation is a relatively simple topic, it's not so easy to achieve in practicality. Well, let's take a look. Let's talk about some practical implications and applications of non-repudiation. So why is non-repudiation important? Let's use two very common figures that are used a lot in cybersecurity and cryptography, Bob and Alice. Remember, like we said, non-repudiation allows for the proof of origin, proof of authenticity, and the proof of integrity of data. So Bob needs a way to verify that a message received from Alice that has very important instructions is legitimately sent from her and that it hasn't been intercepted and altered on the way to him. So something like a digital signature would help. Digital signatures help in non-repudiation. On the flip side, Alice wants to be sure that Bob received the message, that he got it. You can't deny receiving those instructions and say, I didn't get that message, so I didn't do it. So she could request a read receipt in the email that she sends to Bob. If he sends that read receipt, she has confirmation that he actually received that message. Now let's look at my computer and let's take a look at an example of digital signatures and how they can help in non-repudiation. Digital signatures are dependent on public key cryptography. And as you remember, with public key cryptography, we are using key pairs. We have a public key and a private key. If an individual wants to send a message to someone and encrypt it, they will encrypt it with their public key, because the only key that can decrypt that is the pair to that key, the private key of that individual. We don't have time to get into the whole cryptography lesson. That'll be a different video. But digital signatures use this public and private key pair relationship to be effective. So let's take an example of files. Files are constantly downloaded off the internet, and we have two people. One person downloads a file from one person. They want to be sure that it is the authentic file. It hasn't been changed, edited by a malicious actor. It doesn't contain malware, etc. So if I do an ls here, we see file1.txt. So before I upload this file to the internet, as Bob in our example, I'm going to have to sign this file with a digital signature. And I can do that using a tool in Linux called GNUPG or GPG. The command is simply GPG sign file1.txt. My key phrase has a password, so I'm going to have to put in my password. And when we do an ls now, we see the signed version of this file, file1.txt.gpg. Now let's say Sally gets this file. She has already imported into her system my public GPG key, because remember, this digital signature is signed with my private key. So when she's received this file, she can do a verification to check that nothing has been altered. And she would simply have to go gpg -- verify file1.txt.gpg. And what do we see? We see that a signature was made just a few minutes ago in this example using an RSA key, and it is a good signature from Bastion Cyber, our organization. Like we mentioned, a very common use of digital signatures is in emails. And in the case of emails, many times, what will be used will be called a detached signature. And in this case, a new file is created as the signature, like so. And with GPG, the command is simply gpg -- armor we create a detached signature for file1.txt. And if you look, we now have this file1.txt.asc. That is our detached signature that we could send it with an email to prove the authenticity of the file. And to verify this, the recipient simply needs to go GPG, verify that file, file1.txt.asc with file1.txt. If they have two files, they're going to verify the one file with the signature file. And as you can see, it's good. So let's do something to show you what would happen if this file had been edited and it was no longer in that clean signed state with the integrity. So let's say that I put something into that file. I'm going to echo this into file1.txt. Okay, we cat file1.txt. We have hello Bob hacker here. Okay, I've edited after I signed it. Remember that detached signature I made before I edited. So the integrity of this document is no longer preserved. So if I verify that signature, GPG dash, and I want to verify file1.txt.asc, I'm going to verify it against my file, file1.txt. What happens? We have a bad signature. This document has been edited and the integrity is no longer preserved. So what would happen? The sender creates the file, they create a detached signature, they send the file and the signature to the recipient. When the recipient receives it, they can then verify that it is in the same state it was when it was sent. And that's just one example of how digital signatures can be used to keep non-repudiation. So now you've seen a demo of digital keys. You see how those were able to prove the integrity of that file that we edited. But there's something important to understand about non-repudiation. Attackers will try to cause repudiation, cause room for doubt. For an example, they will try to edit the logs. When they attack a system, they'll try to edit the logs to make it look like something else happened. They'll try to make it look like someone else took those actions, all to throw investigators off of their trail, much like you would see in any kind of crime, where a criminal does things to throw the law enforcement off of his tracks. Cyber criminals do the same thing. They try to cause doubt and repudiation. Before we conclude, there's something very important that you need to understand about non-repudiation. And it's this. Non-repudiation is strongly dependent on identification, authentication, authorization, access control, and auditing. Identification, claiming to be an identity. Authentication, proving you are who you claim to be. Authorization, the permissions and the access that an individual has. Auditing, recording of logs of events and activities on the system. And in that case, it's very important that the integrity of that underlying system is not compromised. And accounting, which is reviewing those logs for compliance and security violations. It is very, very important that those are very strong and remain with integrity. They are not corrupted, so that you can have non-repudiation in information security. So to recap what we've talked about, non-repudiation is a state in which an individual cannot deny having done, said, received, or edited, whatever the case might be. They can't deny having taken that action. It's very dependent on identification, authorization, and there's many ways that organizations can achieve non-repudiation. We looked at digital keys as an example. That's one way, but there are many other ways. So that wraps up this CISSP Study Corner. Be sure that you hit the bell notification and subscribe so that you're notified when our next video comes out.